Hey there, Chad Roberts, and in this episode of the Team Builder series, really fortunate to have a chance to visit with Leigh O'Dell of the Beasley Allen law firm in Montgomery, Alabama. Leigh and also Michelle Parfit are in charge of one of the largest litigation MDLs currently in the federal system, the ovarian cancer talcum powder MDL. And Leigh has a solid reputation as a great team builder and organizer and leader. And what was fun about this visit is that she explained a little bit of the background of how she came by those skills, which I think you'll enjoy, along with all of her insights in how she does her job and a few tips on keeping herself organized. Here's our visit with Leigh.
I'm Leigh O'Dell, and I'm a shareholder at Beasley Allen. I currently serve as co-lead counsel of the Plaintiff Steering Committee of the Talc Ovarian Cancer MDL.
Leigh, good morning. Thank you very much for spending time with us. We are here in your Montgomery office, right?
Yes, thanks for having me.
And so this playlist where people come from is to talk to lawyers who have a lot of experience with team building. And one additional requirement is that they have successful experience with team building. And that's what people associate with you. Can you just tell us how you may have grown into this kind of role professionally and how it evolved for you?
I'd love to. I think you have to start at the beginning in terms of team building. And I'm one of 6 kids. And we were a team, and it was, everything was a project, nothing's easy with 6 kids. And so, my parents actually were great at building teams, both within our family and outside of our family. So that's where it started. And I remember when I got into law practice, the first few years, I worked on my own list of cases. I had a secretary and a paralegal. It was just us. And it was fine, but that's not what I loved. I mean, I grew up playing sports on teams, and then actually I took a break from law practice and had the privilege of working with a ministry where I'd go into an area and build a team of hundreds of people. And that process of making connections, casting a vision, setting out a plan, doing your best to try to hit the marks with different people, using their skills, maybe doing a little training. I love that. And I learned that, at home. I learned that, later in professional life. And then when I came back into law practice after that time in ministry, I was in mass torts, and mass torts works best as a team. And so I felt like it really matched my proficiencies and things I really love to do, and that's really work with a group of people.
So that little workabout with the ministry, that involved filling up football stadiums with people, right? That was don't sell that short. Now that's an interesting background that I know you have. If you could share that, if you would, and then how it may have informed how you came back later and worked with lawyers.
Yeah, well. It was 18,000 seat arenas. Wow. So basically an NBA arena was the type event. And so you'd be invited into a region and you'd work with people from all different walks of life, all different churches, all different experiences, and you go in and you sort of cultivate those relationships, and your aim was to invite as many people as possible to fill that arena. And then that wouldn't stop there, and it was a 2-day event that I worked with, but wouldn't stop there. You'd have as many as 2,000 or 3,000 people in 6 weeks of Bible study thereafter. And so that really honed my experience.
A lot of moving parts.
A lot of different tasks, a lot of different people, but you had a very real schedule.
Yes.
And you had a hard deadline, and that was
the marks.
You had to hit the marks, and you hopefully did it with excellence. And so when I came back into law practice, it was very similar. You're working with a large group of people. You're trying to discover this case, hit the marks in terms of trial settings or briefing or whatever it might be. And you come from different perspectives, different levels of experience, different things. And so a lot of those skills transferred in a way I would have never have imagined, actually. Well, I think it's always better to, we need to be aggressive in our practice and we need to hit the mark. But I think it's always better to encourage rather than tear down. I mean, it's just, honey collects a lot more good things than something that's negative. And so what I'm always trying to do is, first I want to really listen. I have an idea of where we're going. I have an idea of how I think we should get there. But I also recognize I don't have all the best ideas, and there's some super talented people. They will have better ideas than I will. So one, I want to always make sure that when I'm listening, that I'm flexible when it's something that will achieve the goal and it fits the group better, that I'm really adjusting what I'm thinking. And number two is when we have a situation where maybe there needs to be some accountability or some course correction or whatever that might be, that I do it in a way that would encourage and undergird and maybe even inspire. I hope to do that. That's aspirational. I don't really always do that, but in a way that so that you can have an experience with a team that is not only accomplishes what you want, to do it with excellence, but to be really positive so that cultivates a real sense of camaraderie and friendship and so forth. Well, I'll tell you one of the things I would say for anybody, and I have a great team here at the firm and I've worked with some great teams, and if my team has said that about me, that's what I'm thinking most of the time. I mean, you just want to work harder than anybody on your team. If I say to them, hey, listen, if you say you're going to do it by some certain date, you're going to do it. I want to be that person. And so I have the same probably stress.
So let's do maybe some nuts and bolts things.
Okay.
I ask you ahead of time maybe just some open mic issues of if let's say there's a new young lawyer who has been selected for the plaintiff steering committee and is in charge of a committee, for example, a subcommittee, for example, or has just come in their work to be at a firm where they have a bunch of cases and they've got a team they need to build and they need to work with other people. Any sort of big picture scope issues of advice that you would start with for a new young lawyer that wish they had a chance to come to Montgomery and visit with you like this?
Well, I don't know if I have the best sort of protocol, but I think one of the things that lawyers don't often do well is we don't communicate well. And I think if you're sitting down with a team, one, you need to sit down with your team face to face, set the vision, come up with a strategy that the group embraces together, and then make a clear schedule and meet the mark, and then communicate. I think that we as lawyers on teams, we maybe have an initial discussion and then we go off and everybody starts doing what they're doing, and then we don't come back and we don't really communicate well. So I think that's one thing I would say is have a really open dialogue with your team. Keep that going not only face to face, but be responsive.
A lot of communication.
Communication, not over communication, but just you want to make sure the expectations are clear, and you want to make sure in addition to those maybe roundtable discussions that you're very responsive. I mean, if you get an email from your team member, respond. And I say it's so simple, but it's not easy, and if you're getting hundreds of emails a day, it's really quite hard. So I think there's a balance to that, but that's one thing I would say.
As the co-chair of one of the largest national multi-district litigation projects, what's your typical day like? I know not all days are typical, but when you're running this big train, do you have a process? Do you have a technique? Do you have
every day's different. You have a number of calls. I think every day's different, but every day involves conference calls of one sort or another, and I'm so honored and privileged because I have a great co-lead counsel,
Right,
Michelle
yes.
Parfit, who is outstanding, and just outstanding lawyer, but outstanding person. And so, one of the things that we really have as a high core value is we're together.
Yeah.
We are in sync. And that takes work. So part of what we're doing is making sure we both are apprised of all the issues, our concerns, thoughts, ideas, and then we may handle it separately, but we're in sync when we're doing that. And I think, that's a part of my day. But every day is different. In this
Right.
MDL, we've spent a ton of time on expert issues. So, other parts of the day relate to addressing science issues and
This and that.
discovery. Yeah.
Right. Any specific things about the electronic discovery part of it? This is the core issue of our little educational channel here. I know a lot of that's kind of run its course a little bit in the life cycle of talc,
Yeah.
but any feedback for folks that are tackling perhaps the first big case where there are big data volumes, big challenges for just understanding all the information that you're getting?
Well, I think the couple of things I would say to that is, number one is don't underestimate the need for a professional to come in and help you with your electronic discovery issues. It is something that most lawyers, even the brightest, most experienced, there's so many new things.
You just don't have time?
You don't have time. You don't have the technical expertise, and so have a professional come in and help you, like yourself or others. And then take the time to negotiate your ESI protocol in a way that's really aggressive and beneficial, because that helps you throughout the case.
Right.
And we as lawyers, we don't want to do that. We want to get an order in place and have documents produced. That is against your best interest. And
be patient. So be patient
Yes.
with that process.
Be patient.
Right.
I think the other thing I would say is, in the MDL setting, one of the things over time that you have people say is that that's just document review. That's just that. That's just, and that is not the right attitude. That is a valuable contribution to the case, and so don't overlook the need to put really good people into that process.
Quality.
Give them good goals. Give them understanding of the case. So that is really done in a way that's worthwhile, because that's one of the things that builds a work product that's going to help you in those corporate depositions. It's going to help you, in our case, in the scientific sort of
Right.
development of the case, and it's just critically, important.
Right.
And I think as 10 years ago, I would not have appreciated that as much. I would have been really, how much difference can it make? Well, it can make a huge difference, and so I would urge that.
Open mic, anything for the good of the order? I'm sorry. Have we talked about your tools? You said you brought your book, but I didn't know if that was. Have we talked about your?
We don't know if it's a tool, but I will say for me, life is so busy, and for those that have better memories, better minds, maybe they remember everything. I know I don't, and so one of my tools, you asked me to bring a tool, is I have a diary, and
wow.
and a work diary, and so if I'm in a call or in a meeting, I make notes. That helps me. I didn't do that as a young lawyer. Probably didn't do it consistently until about 6 or 7 years ago, and it is something that really helps me organize my thoughts first, come away with good action items that I can execute in a timely way, and I think for leadership that's really important, not the least of which just to go back and be able to say, if I said this, okay, I don't remember it. That was a year ago.
Right.
Maybe I have clear memory, maybe I don't, but this just helps in my process.
In the business of exploiting information, one of the things you learn first is how perishable it is.
Yeah.
And we try to have workflows where you only touch a document one time. That's the goal. Doesn't always work out, but that's the gold standard. Is let's just touch this document one time, and it is a perishable thing.
Exactly.
So
too many things coming at you from too many different directions. At least in my case.
Leigh, thanks so much for being a great host, and you're always a great host when we have occasion to be here on projects in Montgomery. And thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll see you next time.
Thanks.